Howdy folks, George here, Fish Alaska, with another blog segment for you. Today I'm going to talk about a universal way of terminating your salmon trolling gear, which allows you to quickly change out gear for different fishing scenarios. You could be fishing in saltwater with a downrigger, you could be fishing in saltwater with a flasher and lead, you could be back trolling in a river like the Kenai or the Nushagak with a big jet diver. This terminal rigging will work for all of those, and it allows you to quickly switch out gear for those different applications. To do this, and what we're talking about is simply this setup right here. You'll need a gum pucky, which you can get from Silver Horde Tackle. You can order them in bulk. They come in a couple different colors and different sizes. Sometimes I actually cut mine down to make them smaller. The advantage of the gum pucky is it's soft, and you can see it coming in the water, so you know when you're getting close to time to net a fish. The softness is important because, especially if you have newcomers in your boat that don't fish very often, you don't want to wind hard stuff right up to the rod tip, or you might pop out that eyelet, or worse yet, chip it and not know it, in which case it's going to damage your line. Next, you need a slider of some sort. I like the simple B&R sliders. They're plastic, the line threads through them. I put a dual lock snap on them, and that allows me to attach either a weight or a diver if I'm going to use it in that capacity. I modify my B&R sliders a little bit. If you look really close at this, you might be able to see that I've actually cut a notch into one end of it with a Dremel tool. That allows the swivel to seat right up in there, and it prevents line twist from traveling up your main line. Last but not least, you'll need a good quality ball bearing swivel. I like the sample ball bearing swivel with a coast lock snap on it. This swivel will last for years if you remember to rinse it out after use in saltwater. The one that I use has a welded ring, not a split ring. I like welded rings because they will never come apart, and your knot will never slip around and get caught between the different rungs of the split ring. So welded ring, ball bearing swivel with a coast lock snap. That's basically the setup. And now I want to talk about the different ways that you can actually rig this thing up to fish in different scenarios. Let's say you're going to fish in saltwater and you're going to use downriggers with a flasher and a hoochie, or a flasher and a spoon, or a herring, or anything like that. To use this setup, what I do is I ignore the stuff above the swivel, and I simply snap my flasher, whether it's a triangle flasher or a skateboard style flasher like this one. I just clip it onto the coast lock snap. My leader will be going out past the flasher there, and I can just hook this into the downrigger and I'm good to go. Let's say that I want to fish a similar setup, maybe in an estuary, maybe in saltwater, where I'm going to use lead instead of a downrigger, and I want to maybe fish close to the bottom, maybe not, who knows, but I'm using lead. Well, with this setup, what I do in that situation is simply remove the flasher. I'm going to add a flasher leash of some sort. This is 2 feet of heavy monofilament that I often use with 360 flashers. It's going to clip onto the coast lock snap. The other end is going to clip onto the flasher. And then whatever I'm going to use for a bait or lure, of course, would be on the other end of the flasher. It's a pretty simple setup. The difference with downrigger fishing and using lead, obviously, is I'm going to attach lead to the dual lock that's on the slider. Now, if I'm fishing suspended, open water, not snaggy water, I'm probably going to put the lead cannonball right on this dual lock snap. But if I'm fishing close to the bottom, especially if it's snaggy, I'm going to use a monofilament dropper, maybe a foot or so long, to my cannonball to the dual lock snap. So that's how I would do it if I was using lead instead of fishing with a downrigger. The same thing applies. I mean, you don't always use a flasher. There are some fisheries where I prefer just a cut plug herring and lead, and in that situation, just omit the flasher. In that case, you would attach your lead to the slider, and your herring mooching leader simply to the back of the coast lock snap. Now let's say I've been fishing Deep Creek and I was fishing with lead and cut plug herring. trolling around out there for kings, but now the fish gods have smiled on us, and there's a good-sized run of king salmon headed for the Kenai River, and I'm going to go back troll the Kenai. This same terminal setup works the same rod that I used in Deep Creek yesterday I can use today in the Kenai. All I'm going to do is take my jet diver, if I'm going to use a jet diver. This one's on a dropper. Sometimes I just use bead chain swivel for my dropper in the Kenai, but this illustrates a purpose. Here's my diver. Now if I'm going to use a plug, I just simply have my plug leader going off the coastlock snap, or my spin and glow and eggs, or my cheater and eggs, or if bait's even allowed, right off the back of the coastlock snap. Let's say I'm going to flatline a plug because the water's low this year. Get rid of the diver. You can leave everything else on here. Attach your plug leader to the back of the coastlock snap, and you're ready to go to flatline a plug. Could you use this same terminal rigging for back bouncing? Yep, you sure could. Now, I wouldn't necessarily be using a 9 or a 9.5 or 10.5 foot rod for back bouncing, but you could certainly attach your lead to the slider with or without a dropper, and your back bouncing leader to the end of the coastlock snap. So it's a really versatile way to do it. The knot that I use in this setup with braid, either 50 or 65 pound braid, is a San Diego jam knot. I tend to lean towards 65 pound braid just because it's a little bit more durable in the long run. And when I rig this up this way, it might stay like this. I might not retie that knot for a couple months. I mean, it's a really durable rig. Yes, I inspect the first several feet of the braided main line regularly, like before every trip. And every once in a while I have to cut some off. But generally this rigging will stay good for a long time. Okay, it's simple. It's a rigging that will last you for a long time, and you can use it in a variety of different salmon trolling and back trolling scenarios. The components are easy to come by. I suggest you use quality components like these, and if you do, this rigging will serve you well for years.